It is Friday and it's the Big Meat Kickoff. It is Friday, September 8th. I am your host, Kevin Noon. Welcome to the show, everybody. And we are here on the eve of week 2 of the Big Ten schedule. Obviously, there was a game yesterday, Louisville and Murray State. I think I watched all of about 14 seconds of it. We have a pair of Big Ten games tonight here on Friday. Indiana hosting Indiana State and Illinois traveling to Kansas. And then, of course, a full slate on Saturday, including Youngstown State coming to Ohio State. Want to welcome everybody into the show, as I said earlier, here with the Big Meat Kickoff. And be sure, as we get started, to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell. Don't miss a single episode of anything here on the channel here at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle, including the Big Meat Kickoff, Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning, Buckeye Weekly Podcast, Skull Session Recruiting Podcast, all of that good stuff. So, from there, let's just kind of move on. I agreed to do this show after doing, I think it was probably the Mark Rogers show, and we had, there was a lot of vitriol toward Ohio State amongst some Michigan fans, around some Notre Dame fans, generally just, fans of programs other than Ohio State. But, I think we're kind of used to that. But the vitriol also has kind of spread to people who purport to be Ohio State fans. Obviously, last week against Indiana was not satisfactory, really, to anybody. If we kind of look at it, I mean, a Big Ten win is a Big Ten win, and a Big Ten road win is that much more important. But with a 30-point line and Ohio State winning by 20, certainly not the outcome that people expected. And it really has had me thinking, and I'll start getting to your comments and questions here in a minute. It's had me thinking just where we are in terms of the Ohio State. So good that anything short of a 50-point win, anything short, going to get it cut. And of course, now the internet is going to start giving me issues for no reason. Nobody's on Netflix right now here at the house, so I'm not sure what that's all about. So if this lags a little bit, I apologize. That should not be the case. I'll reboot my router after the show. I can't do it during the show. But what are your thoughts on what expectations are this season? Now, we know every Ohio State fan expects undefeated season, decimation of Michigan, Big Ten title, national championship. Those are the expectations. Now, whether or not that's reasonable and realistic every year, that's up for debate. But the expectations are what they are, and that's the case. I don't really talk to many Ohio State fans. They're like, you know what, Kevin? I'd be cool with 10-2 and a second place finish in the East, with this being the last year of divisions. I'm fine with that. Football's better when the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry is competitive. I don't get that either. But conversely, I do see the people that think that 2023 should be an immediate continuation of 2022, where you had a second-year starter in C.J. Stroud. You had 3 offensive linemen that made the 53-man rosters of their respective NFL teams who are now gone. And just some other key points. So I don't know what expectations should be, but let's get through a couple of the hellos, and then I'll get caught up on your comments as I give you a minute to catch up with me here on, again, Friday, September 8th. But, Bucktown Bully, go Bucks, Florida Buckeye. Have a great, hey, all, great day to be a Buckeye, OH. And then, of course, we get an IO. Magnets are fun. Absolutely, Magnets are fun. 38-3, Ohio State over Youngstown State. Longtime friend of the show, Mika Hanna, with an OH, and then a score prediction of her own with 45-3. Last Wing Butterfly is here dealing with the plumber as well, which, of course, we get Say No to Crack. But Glasswing is here, who is also a great member over at Buckeye Huddle. And if you're not a member of Buckeye Huddle yet, get on board for the price of a crummy delivery pizza. And they're crummy, I can assure you. Most of them are. You can be a member too at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Get full access to all of our content. Have access to us every day, all day on the message board, on the Huddle message board. Have access to our subscriber only stories, which includes Tail of the Tape, a lot of our recruiting features, things of that nature. And of course, too, it keeps us employed. So all of that, very important, over at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Be sure to be a member. And of course, too, if you want to contribute on top of that, super chats are always welcome. Let's just keep going through here. This was prior to the show. Are we still waiting? That was at 12:59. We went on right at 1. I think I went on about 4 seconds late as I was having a little bit of a coughing fit before the show started. Billy Tuesday's on board, says go Bucks. Tuki G, Ditka 402, Youngstown State 0, Ohio State 21, Ditka 20. It's a lot of scores right there. I don't think it works that way. Ohio State plays nice with Tressel dotting the I and only punts up 83 on YSU. I brought that up a little bit in my Tail of the Tape, and I won't get too far off of the flow I've set for the show, because I know I asked you guys some direct questions, and I want the comments to be semi-relevant to what we're talking about at that point. Ohio State has played Youngstown State twice during the Jim Tressel era. Obviously, he had a soft spot in his heart for the hometown team. You know, he is from like Berea, though, and everything else. Dad coached at Baldwin Wallace, but I don't think he wanted to really run it up on Youngstown State. I don't think that that Ryan Day necessarily has as much concern about that. One-time Buckeye Marcus Hooker is in the starting lineup for the Penguins. We do have a super chat, so let me jump over to that really quick. Stephen Piper was prepared to drop off from CJ, but with the pedigree and 3 years in the system, I was expecting more. Your thoughts on Kyle McCord's performance? Okay, let me get back to where I was in terms of the comments, just so I don't lose anybody. But once again, Stephen, thank you for the super chat. I've watched the game 3 times now. I watched it once live, and I've watched it twice on DVR, and I'm ready to delete it. I have it saved on my hard drive, so I don't have to worry about taking up space on my DVR. I did see a level of timidness out there. Now, the question is, how much of that was in terms of play calling? How much of that was in decision making? I certainly did see times where there were free runners out there, and Kyle, for whatever reason, did not make the throws. I mean, a couple of the times he was going one way, and it would have required him to kind of make an awkward throw or throw across his body or throw across the middle, and things that you don't necessarily have a first-year starter, regardless of how old they are, how many years in the system, things that are not advisable. I mean, we did see Kyle kind of throw it across the middle for his one interception on that 4th down. I certainly expected more out of the quarterback position. I certainly expected more in terms of pitch and catch with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka. But for what it's worth, Marvin was targeted 8 times. He only had 2 receptions. Takes 2 to tango there. Passes aren't where they need to be. Marvin can only has so many superpowers. He can only do so much. So I think that a lot of things are going to look right in this game. And that's because Youngstown State is not going to have the same success with its pass rush that Indiana did. Now, of course, Indiana's success with its pass rush creates a whole different set of issues of Ohio State's line not necessarily holding up, only one player grading out as a champion, that being right tackle Josh Fryer. You don't even get your veterans in Matt Jones and in Donovan Jackson grading out as champions. Obviously, Joshua Simmons had himself a little bit of a day. I think that the stage fright is gone, and I think we're going to get a much more true read this week and next week going into Notre Dame. If he struggles against an FCS team this week, if he struggles against a group of 5 team next week, I think you have to start kind of thinking some things through, but I also am not trying to speak stuff into existence. I'm not trying to say, well, he's going to have those issues and you should have Luke Montgomery out there. Or, I mean, at that point, what do you do? Do you move Josh Fryer, a position where he graded out as champion at right tackle, move him to left tackle, and then put a young guy out at right tackle? Do you continue to play musical chairs? Do you try to perform maintenance on the plane at 35,000 feet? So these 2 weeks are going to be hugely important for the efforts of the Buckeyes. But to Steven's point, I was expecting more too. I certainly was not expecting CJ Stroud versus Georgia, throwing it all over the field, making all of these reads. I was not expecting that because, again, you can be in the program and practice against the twos and the threes and whatever. I mean, he certainly is well removed from being the scout team quarterback. He's had his chance to run the offense, but he was not getting the lion's share of the snaps, obviously, with CJ Stroud there. It doesn't matter how long you've been in there, it's how many times you've been out there in a live fire exercise. And yes, he did start against Akron in 21 in week 3. But you may as well just cross that one off the list because that was such a long time ago. That's ancient history. That has nothing to do with nothing. The personnel, very different now. So he's had the one start, really, in my books. I mean, obviously, for the sake of factual writing, you have to say he's had 2 starts because he has had 2 starts. But he's had 1 start with this crew. And I think we're going to see a pretty good step up. A lot of that's going to be a step down in its competition, but I think a lot of it too is going to be a step up in feeling comfortable in the offense. And I think that the coaches saw, hey, if we don't go out there and have something a little bit more dynamic, if you sit there and you play for second gear, you're only going to run in second gear. Now that doesn't mean that you're going to sit there and drop the hammer and hit the nitrous and try and win the drag race week 2. It's a long season. You got a lot to go through. But I think you've got to do more. I think you've got to enable Kyle more by giving him more. That doesn't mean giving him stacks upon stacks upon stacks of plays and everything else. Don't confuse the young starting quarterback. And I use the term young in terms of experience versus chronological age. But you have to give him more of an opportunity. You have to give him more runway. You have to give him a chance to sink or swim. This is an opponent that, even if you sit there and you have a couple of bad drives, you should still be able to do quite well against. So I digress. But once again, Stephen, thank you for the super chat. Let me kind of jump through here. El Suzabo's lurking today, working on some jewelry and a few hours of soldering. So, we know that El Suzabo retirement from the medical field has her little side hustle now with her jewelry. Something that we talk about a good amount. Let me just go through here. Odysseus, It's Time to Panic, Indy and TTUN and PSU and the 85 Bears and the greatest show on turf combined /S, meaning into sarcasm. So, yeah, I mean, there were a lot of people's heads falling off, pets' heads falling off over the Indiana game. I certainly saw a lot of overcorrections on ballots in the AP poll and in the National Football Foundation, Football Writers Association of America Super 16 poll. Say that one 5 times fast. Ohio State getting dropped to 7, 8, 10. I think I saw him 14 or something. No, maybe that was Clemson. I saw 14, but certainly saw Ohio State get punished by a lot of people. And I didn't have a hard time moving Ohio State out of 2 or 3 down to 4 or 5. But some of the teams that were ahead of them in some of these other ballots that had Ohio State 8, 9, 10, those teams didn't perform any better than Ohio State did. They didn't go and play a conference road game. They just played a game. Maybe they were a little bit more effective, but if you're playing against Hamburger U, who gives a crap? I mean, seriously, who cares? That's Ohio State's playing Hamburger U this weekend, and that's no offense to Youngstown State. I have a lot of love for in-state programs around the state of Ohio, You have 53 scholarships or 55 scholarships or whatever FCS is, and you're going against Ohio State that has 85, with the vast majority of it being at the 4-star level or above, according to the recruiting services. This is a, this is a glorified scrimmage in a lot of ways. And at least it's going to be decent weather in terms of temperature. It's raining right now here in Pickerington, just east of Columbus. I have not necessarily looked at the weather forecast, but I've been told it's not going to be all that hot. It was gross in Bloomington. It was very hot. I guess it was like 115 on the field or something like that, with the heat of the artificial turf coming up and kicking your butt. So I think we're going to see a lot of good things going on. But let's keep going through here. Wagon Sports, let's go Wagon, and see you at the shoe tomorrow. Mika says hello. Odysseus says natty or bust. Mika also believes, I think we get our issues fixed. Frank, my guy, let me talk you off the ledge. And I don't know if I can talk you off the ledge because you have pitched a tent on the ledge. You've been on the ledge a lot. You've been very vocal in your concerns about the quarterback position. You've been very vocal in your concerns about other things. I hear you. I read you. I don't blow you off. I promise. I've read everything you've said. I don't know what is going to get you off the ledge. I think we're going to have to get to week 12, and Ohio State's going to have to beat Michigan for you to get off the ledge. Because hear me out. These next 2 weeks don't mean anything. They really don't in terms of ledge movement. It doesn't. Week 4, Notre Dame. If Ohio State goes out and beats Notre Dame, which I fully expect Ohio State to go out and beat Notre Dame. Well, Notre Dame poops the bed in big games. Ohio State has owned Notre Dame since the 30s. So that's not really that big of a deal. I need to see the next one. I don't have Ohio State's chronological schedule in front of me, but I think, you've got Penn State. Okay, well, Ohio State has had Penn State's number as of late, too. James Franklin pulled a James Franklin, and Ohio State won the game, but I'm still not impressed. And then you got Wisconsin. Yeah, it's a big road game at Wisconsin. Luke Fickell, yada, yada, yada. It's going to take him another year or two to move away from truly being a Braylon Allen running back driven team to being a spread team with a current offense. So we could just keep ticking down the list until we get to Michigan, week 12. So I don't know necessarily if Kyle McCord comes out and plays 6 of the next 8 quarters of football and throws for 610 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick, rushes for another touchdown, 50 yards of rushing, again, over the course of 2 games, 6 quarters, 3-3. Are you necessarily going to feel any better? Are you going to be like, I was wrong? Or are you going to be like, well, it was against Youngstown State and Western Kentucky. It doesn't matter. So I don't necessarily know what it is. And I think everybody's going to have to come to their own time of when they are off the ledge and when they're believing. And I don't know what it's going to take to get you there. I mean, what may get Frank there may not get Mika there. What may get Odysseus there may not get Glasswing there. Everybody's got their own metrics. I mean, the biggest thing at the end of the day is keeping a 0 in the loss column. The only way that you're going to get to all your goals is pretty much by winning all your games. I mean, sure, I think 11-1 in a major conference, and by that I really mean SEC or Big Ten. I think 11-1 in a major conference is still going to be quite fine in terms of college football playoff. But if it's 11-1 and that losses to Michigan, and then you get into what does the Big Ten get 2 teams in here in the last year, 4 teams? I mean, there's going to be a lot of consternation and people grinding their teeth down, and dental bills will go through the roof. And so I don't know, Frank. I don't know what has to get you to that point. I am just saying that I don't have any sort of alarm bell sounding. I'm concerned about left tackle. I think I need to see more. I think that success begets success. I think if Josh Simmons goes out there and has a really good game, I think he builds on that to Western Kentucky, and then I think he builds on that to Notre Dame. If he goes out and he struggles against an FCS, defensive end, then I'm going to be a little bit more concerned. I certainly don't have the alarm bells going off about McCord straight up. I am a little bit concerned about this wishy-washy offense that was kind of called. I mean, and it's very easy to sit there and find a lot of hidden points. The Marvin Harrison out of bounds touchdown taken off the board. Apparently, the Big Ten said that it should not have been taken off the board, that he was forced out. I still think from watching it, I don't know if he really made as hard of an effort as he should have to get reestablished. The Carnell Tate drop pretty much at the end zone. That was another touchdown really taken off the board. If Ohio State goes from 23 points to let's just turn a field goal into a touchdown. So let's call it 27, and then let's add another touchdown and call it 34. If Ohio State won that game 34-3 with minimal change, is the narrative different? Do people feel different right now? Is there a warm and fuzzy feeling in step one, we're on the way? Or are people still like, yeah, but you didn't hit 40. You barely covered. I mean, even at some books, I saw 31 around kickoff. I mean, that would have been a push. So, I mean, are people truly happy at that point? So I don't know necessarily what gets people across the finish line. So long story longer, Frank, I don't know. Joshua Griffith, Buckeyes look terrible overall. Hate to say it. Overall, I mean, what is your definition of overall? I thought the defense looked fine. People may sit there and be like, yeah, but there weren't any sacks. There was like one sack. You're going against a team running a triple option. Sure, they threw it 21 times or something like that. Team was not quarterback Sorsby or Davis or Jackson. I know he's Trace Jackson Davis's brother. He came in too. I mean, neither of them were sitting back there statuesque for a chance to sack them. So I don't know what the expectations are for the defense. Yeah, you would have liked to seen maybe a forced turnover or two. Sometimes that's luck. Sometimes that's luck that you can just knock the ball out of the ball carrier's hands or something like that with stripping it or punching it. There weren't really a lot of highly contested throws. I mean, Davison Igbenison had a chance at one. I mean, there were a couple things, but they weren't throwing a ton of 50-50 balls out there. So I don't know what this overall is. Now, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I've got an opinion. Joshua's got an opinion. Odysseus has an opinion. I'm just looking at people who's listed on my chat thread right now. So if I don't mention you as an example out there, apologies. It's the names I see in front of me at the moment. So I don't know what that is. I think that the Indiana game on offense was, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Nonchalant in some ways. And I don't think it was an intentional nonchalantness, but it felt like there wasn't a ton of urgency. And the game was never in question. If anybody tells me that they were worried at 7-3 Ohio State, I'm going to sit there and have to check your pulse because I'm just not sure about you. The game was never in question. And at the end of the day, the goal is to win the game. The goal isn't to cover. The goal isn't to do any of that. The goal is to win the game. And that doesn't mean that you should just, we're up a score. Let's pack it in and just ride with it. That's not how it works. But with that being said, the ultimate scoreboard is the scoreboard. You can quote me on that one if you'd like. The ultimate scoreboard is the scoreboard. So the stats are great and all, but win the damn game. Win the damn game. Billy Tuesday, we've been spoiled by quarterback play. I agree. Jordan Kapler, obviously with a gun to his head here, begrudgingly. He's here. He doesn't have Tom or Tony to fall back on. He is stuck with me at this point. Let me keep going here. Patrick Logan, hello from Portland, Oregon, where we know the Buckeyes will be just fine. I am really hoping when the new schedule comes out that Ohio State gets a trip to Oregon in 24. I can't tell you how disappointed I was that that game in 2020 did not happen. I ended up losing my airfare on it. I ended up with like a 2-year credit that finally went away. I don't think I'm ever going to get the money back from the airline. It wasn't Southwest. I'm not going to name an airline, and I'm not trying to put anybody on blast. I'm from the West Coast, but I've never been to the state of Oregon. I've been to Washington. I was there for the Ohio State Washington game for about 36 hours. Never been to Oregon. I would really like to get an opportunity to check things out. I was supposed to fly into Portland. There were some issues going on in Portland. I'm just going to hashtag stick to sports. So I wasn't going to spend a lot of time there, but I would love to check out the food truck scene there. I've heard so much about that. So give me Oregon in 24. I'm hoping. Allegedly, we should be finding out the new schedule in days or weeks, allegedly, from an Adam Rittenberg story from ESPN. Not necessarily with dates, but at least who it is, because let's remember they released a schedule, and then they added Oregon and Washington. And then that schedule suddenly was nullified. So they're going to get back to that point. I think sometime in October, we'll get the dates. And then people can start scrambling for airfares and getting in on hotels and things like that. Billy Tuesday, Burrow got paid. Absolutely, Joe Burrow got paid. Boy, did he. $55 million a year, I think it was, for 5 years. Like 219.01. I just take the 0.01 to be quite honest when we're talking millions. 219.01 million guaranteed. That's a nice neighborhood to live in. Rumor has it he's engaged. He can pay for a wedding at that point. He can certainly kick in a lot of his own money into that Joe Burrow Foundation that works on works to end hunger in Southern Ohio, as well as the Baton Rouge, Southern Louisiana area. Very good cause that he is involved with there. I mean, I love to see that. You see these players that you've known since they've been in high school get into the league, and then you see them put their money where their mouth is with these great causes. So that means the world. I'm very happy for Joe Burrow. Hope he does well. I'm an NFC fan, so I don't have a dog in the fight when it comes to Browns and Bengals. So I will just pull the pin and duck because I don't want to get in the middle of any of that stuff. Let me get here. Frank is saying 55-3 Ohio State for, I'm assuming for Youngstown State. I'm assuming for Youngstown State. Again, this is the problem. I start talking, and 15 minutes later, we finally get to the comment. Heck, this one is 20 minutes. We finally get to the comment, and I'm like, well, I think this is what he's talking about. But does 55-3 against Youngstown State do anything to move you off the ledge? Hopefully we get to this within the next 20 minutes, and I understand what the comment is in terms of things. Odysseus says that McCord needs to improve his ball placement. Yeah, but the thing is that I think that CJ Stroud is probably the most accurate quarterback in Ohio State quarterbacking history. There's certainly various numbers that we're going to remember quarterbacks for, touchdown passes, passing yards, wins, natties, whatever. But Kyle McCord CJ Stroud threw such a highly catchable ball. I mean, it was always there. But, I saw Kyle throw a couple right in the basket. So it just needs to be more consistent. But as with anything, it's about reps. We just had a super chat come in. I will jump to that here in half a second. I used to play the piano a long time ago, and I could sit down and maybe, hunt and peck out a song, but I haven't played in years. I mean, it's all about reps. It's all about practice. It's all about that. Certainly Kyle McCord has had practice at practice, but now, you're going from practice to a game situation. So he needs to do better there. I agree. Billy Tuesday, McCord did make a few really nice passes. I'm going to put a marker there so I know we are and get to our super chat with Jason. Really looking forward to Youngstown State. No downside with a really big game coming soon. Nothing bad can happen. Signed, Beanie Wells. Of course, nothing bad could happen. I mean, ask Michigan when it hosted Appalachian State. Nothing bad can happen going against an FCS team. So I think there's a lot of upside, but I think that it's going to be, I think that the way that the team is going to view the tape of the Youngstown State is going to be very different than the way that fans view that. Everybody's going in right now and expecting an absolute bloodletting. I get that. I think I haven't seen the line on many boards. Somebody said that they saw it somewhere at 41 and a half. Let's remember with the new clock rules. I mean, certainly we saw Oregon break 80. We saw Oklahoma break 70. There are, you can get to that point. But Ohio State also had 10 offensive possessions against Indiana this year and 15 the year before. Two of those offensive possessions were the end of the first half and the end of the game. And were both shorties. So let's just take those two out of there just for the sake of argument. So 8 possessions. So the most Ohio State could have scored on offense in that game, in theory, is 56 points. So in order to get to that, let's just call the line 42 to keep it easy. So that's 6 touchdowns. So, I mean, is Ohio State going to score 6 touchdowns just to have a push in terms of what the Vegas line is if it shuts Youngstown State out? So you need to kind of figure it out. I mean, I think the biggest bad thing that can happen, and not going to speak it into existence, not going to happen, is if your roster changes. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, if you understand what I'm saying. So I think one of the biggest things is you got to get enough work out of your ones to where they are growing and playing football. But then you also have to get them off the field and play your 2s and play your 3s and get everybody some experience and keep bad things from potentially happening. I think that's going to be one of the balances. And I think that's one of the issues that some fans have had with Ryan Day is that he has kept the ones out there a lot, generally to the answer of these guys need to play more football. Well, I get that. But if something bad happens, they're not playing any football. So where's that line? I don't know. I can assure you I don't make a fraction of what Ryan Day does. He has more gray hair than I do. He has more hair than I do. But he certainly does a good job of hiding it. I mean, it's a lot to take on. So there you go. But thank you for the super chat, Jason. Mika asking, do I think Jack Sawyer is playing timid? No. I think he's doing what's asked of him. I think everybody has to play their 1/11th. Indiana created kind of a weird dynamic with the triple option. In defending the triple option, there are going to be a lot of times where it looks like you're not doing anything, but you're absolutely doing what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, you're key. You're right. You're on the, you're on the running back. You're on the pitch man. You're on this. And if you're on the pitch man and you've got to stay wide and the quarterback decides to tuck it and run up, between the tackles, that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is the pitch man who does nothing on the play. So I'm not going to make any big declarations about what I've seen in terms of this individual's that and this and that individual's this, because they played a gimmicky offense last week, and I think it's just hard to take much from it. You look at Youngstown State, especially the people who read my tale of the tape, who have to be members to Buckeye Huddle. So be sure to sign up, hit that button. They ran for 300 yards against Valpo. They scored 52 points, 52-10 over Valpo. Ran for 300 yards. Not much of a passing game. Was that because that was what Valpo was susceptible to? Well, obviously they gave up 300 and some yards. But I don't know if I necessarily know what Youngstown State's plan is for how it's going to attack Ohio State. I certainly don't think Youngstown State is going to give Ohio State's defensive ends a chance to wreak havoc and, in the game in the first quarter. So we'll see. We'll see. Let me get through here. SS Craddock. Love you, Kev. If I had any money, I'd give you some. I'm still going to be here watching. Got you with some money next week, promise. I love you, SS Craddock. Thank you so much. Again, the best ways you can help out are super chats here. If you're watching us on the Book of Faces, otherwise known as Facebook, send us stars. Not exactly sure how that works, but it does equate to money. But the best thing you can do all 3 of them, and the third one being sign up for BuckeyeHuddle.com. Um, Frank saying the refs did admit that screwed up on that touchdown call. Obviously, getting back to the Marvin Harrison Jr. going, I think it was left to right on the TV screen. He ends up going down, stepping out of bounds, comes in, scores the touchdown. It is not even a replay situation. It is the official taking his throwing his hat off, which was the correct call. But then you have to make the judgment call. Was he forced out? Did he run out on his own? We've taken out intent on face mask between the 5 and 15, but we're still kind of dealing with intent on this. Kind of is what it is. Mika asking what's going on with Trevion Henderson. Running the ball. Let me take a sip of my water. Hold on. Real scratchy throat today. I don't know why. Is so much about the line as well, too. And I think there were a couple of times where maybe he hit the wrong hole. I think one of the big concerns has been that he dances around a little bit more than he needs to. I think if you look at Chip and even if you look at Mayan, they're more decisive runners. I think Trevion, especially with his speed, knows that if he can get out there into the second level, he can house anything. He has deceptively awesome speed. But I think that when you have all of that, you fall victim to trying to make every play perfect. And instead of taking the 5-yard run, you dance around a little too much, and then you end up with a 2-yard run because you don't take what is right there. And I think that might be a little bit of the issue. I didn't play running back, so I'm speaking as an observer rather than a participant, but that's kind of the way I see it. Let's not forget Trevion, I think, had the long run for Ohio State in the game. I think he had a 21-yarder. I don't have the book in front of me, but I'm like 99% sure he had the long run for the team. But if you take that run away, his yards per carry average on his remaining runs was pretty meh. So again, I think that's something that really needs to be hammered home. Sometimes you have to take what the defense is giving you. And yes, please sign me up for a 5-yard per carry average. I think that's going to be fine. And if he sits there and he breaks a couple of big runs against Youngstown State, because obviously not going against necessarily the same type of athlete that he was against Indiana, is everything going to be fixed? No. It just meant that he was able to victimize a lesser team. But again, success begets success, and I think that's important. So we'll see. It appears after week 1 we are healthy. We did not hear about any sort of injuries. They do a pretty good job of keeping a lid on all of that. Now that the Big Ten has instituted this whole conference-wide 2-hour prior to the game availability report, if we even ask about that, they're like, look at the list. Look at the list. Got to wait for the list. But no, the only person that I remember having to be attended to really during the game was Marvin, and he came right back in. So there you go. Odysseus with his idea of moving Donovan Jackson to left tackle. Then what? You put Enoch Vamahi in at guard. Donovan Jackson is a guard. I mean, it was putting him at tackle, putting him at a position that he's not as great at, or he would be a tackle, and then putting Vamahi in, somebody who was not deemed to be a starter at this point, is certainly kind of your 6th lineman. Is that the direction you want to go? Do you want to? I mean, I don't know, but let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's see the next game. Let's really watch the next 8 quarters and see what the line looks like before we start formulating a plan, because that's just not fair to anybody until we see it. So it's just me, Tim 79. We're not going to win the championship by beating Indiana or Youngstown by 60. You need to sit there, and this is kind of what I said in my prediction. I don't know if our predictions have posted yet at Buckeye Huddle. Maybe they're up. Maybe they go up a little later today. I got mine in a couple days ago. And as I put in there, I'm not as concerned about the score. I'm concerned with how it looks. How does it look? Does Ohio State look smooth? Does it look like the offense is natural, or does it look real herky-jerky? Is this station-to-station baseball, base to base, or is Ohio State out there hitting doubles and triples and homers? I want to see Ohio State out there hitting doubles and triples and homers. I don't want to see a lot of station-to-station. You walk and then you steal second, and then you move to third on a fielder's choice, and you score on a sac fly. Boring. I want to see some hits. I want to see some hits. That's what I want. So I don't really care what the score is. I don't bet on Ohio State games. I just, it's not like I would lose my job if I did it. I don't work for the university. I think I outsmart myself, so I don't bet on Ohio State. But 41.5 feels like a lot. But then again, I think I picked Ohio State to cover before I saw the line. I don't remember what my score was. It just depends on the day of the week of what I pick. But I agree with what It's Just Me Tim said. Billy Tuesday, great to see the Chiefs lose. I felt like that was one of those sucker bets that I couldn't get away from. I did bet on the Chiefs last night. Whoops. The good news is it was a bonus bet, so who cares, I guess. But it would have been nice to turn that into withdrawable money versus bonus bet money. Frank was happy to see the Chiefs lose. Odysseus, tongue-in-cheek, it's time for Andy Reid to bench Mahomes. Yeah, he certainly was missing Travis Kelce out there, but, you should probably have him ride the pine. Didn't Elvis Gerbach finally retire? I don't even know who their backup is at this point. Odysseus, how did Michigan not drop below Florida State? I think as I sit back and get comfortable, because we're going to go more than an hour, I have a feeling. Because I think there's a narrative out there. A lot of people feel that Michigan is going to win the Big Ten. I may not be one of those. I'm not. But I think it's hard for people to move somebody that they're predicting to be a conference champion that they have in the top 2, top 3 below a team that maybe came out of, I don't want to say nowhere. I think people had real expectations for Florida State, maybe not to do what it did in its last game. So, I don't know. I felt there were some gross overcorrections in the poll, Colorado being one. I don't think this TCU team is all that good. Florida State being another. I think that, again, I don't think that Clemson's all that good, and whatever. It is what it is. What's the meaning of the polls? Week 1, week 2, week 10, nothing. Talking points. So I appreciate them. It gives me something to talk about. I mean, and I'm not saying let's not talk about the polls. I'm just saying at the end of the day, they don't mean squat right now. Let me keep scrolling down here. Frank says that they need rain in Dayton. Well, it's not like it was raining crazy, and I don't even know if I have a weather alert here at this point anymore, but it was raining. I was like, damn, I should have taken the dog out before all this. But she is in her kennel right now while I do this show, because if I leave her alone for 5 minutes, we have a rug under our dining room table, or really our everyday table. We don't have a formal dining room. She's chewed a hole through it. I ran to Chipotle, as you can see, really quickly. And when I came back, she chewed a second hole through the rug. So she cannot be trusted to be alone. And I cannot trust her to do the show from downstairs watching her. So she has a timeout right now. Frank, love you too, man. I understand that your concerns and sometimes your comments come from a place of love, not from a place of disgust. So it's all good. It's all good. Mika asking about Brandon Baker committing on the 24th. I know a couple of experts, one of them being a Texas expert on one of the other networks, put in their prediction for Texas. A lot of people are saying it's either Texas or Ohio State. I always felt that Oregon was in the mix. Apparently, maybe not as much as I thought. I still am taking the field over Ohio State. There's still 16 days. Let's remember with Kingston Viliamu-Asa, the linebacker out of St. John Bosco who ended up committing to Notre Dame, I promise you, 7 days before he committed to Notre Dame, he was going to Ohio State. Things change. So I don't have to put in I don't belong to any of these prediction groups, so that's fine. I'm not going to put in a prediction, but I'm not ready to push my chips in and say it's Texas. I mean, certainly there are people that feel good about it, but the two people that put in their picks have direct ties to Texas. So maybe Texas feels that they're getting him. I can promise you Ohio State has felt that it's been getting players that it doesn't get. So stay tuned. And SS Craddock, fans today do not recognize defense. I was alive in 2002. Dominant defense can win it all. I said prior to the season, if Ohio State's defense is 20% better and Ohio State's or defense is 20% better and its offense is 20% worse, they're going to be fine. They're probably going to win all their games. I think the offense is down 20% based on a sample size of one game. I think the defense is probably up more than 20%. It'll all balance out once they start to play teams with competent offenses, so on and so forth. But a defense is very important. Now, let's not forget in a national championship game, in a CFP championship game, you have to score north of 40 points. That's just that the data is there. The data is there. But to get to that point, a strong defense is going to get you there. It's going to get you to that point. But you better be able to score 40 plus points against the best of the best in the college football playoff. And again, I don't write the rules. I just read the ones that have been written. That's just one of those things. It's just me. Tim says, yeah, Georgia. But let's not forget, Georgia did score infinity against TCU and did score 45 against Ohio State or whatever it was. 43. I've put so much of that game out of my memory. So with that being said, I think you have to have both, but defense is going to get you into position. Frank would be happy to shut out Western Kentucky. I think that one's going to be maybe a little bit more difficult. And that's not that I think that Western Kentucky is just this awesome team, but I think that it's a case of Western Kentucky could go 4-8, but still average 35 points a game in terms of its offense. I mean, it could lose everything 48-35 all along the way. I mean, you just don't know how that's going to look at the end of the day. And again, I don't want to get too much into stats. I always keep an NC2A stats page in front of me because I think it's important to have all of that. But one weekend, we really don't know a whole lot. We don't know what we don't know. Western Kentucky, I'm pulling up their stats right now from 1 week to see where they figure out nationally. And this is always such a slow load, but give me a second here. Total offense, 40th. Rushing offense, 81st. Passing offense, 20th. Passing efficiency, 79th. Scoring offense, tied for 38th. So, okay, they played South Florida. They played against a team that has a pulse. Maybe not a strong one, but they're certainly not flatlining on the table. People need to not watch, and you're not going to be able to. I mean, you're going to have to really hunt to watch their game this weekend. They're playing Houston Christian. I thought they were playing Houston Baptist, but maybe Houston Baptist changed their name to Houston Christian. I don't know. Regardless, they're playing a team that is probably worse than Youngstown State. So if we repeat this show next week and do another one like this, and we probably will, I don't want to hear they threw for 500 yards last week against 5 guys and a small dog. I mean, who cares? I mean, so, we'll see. We'll see. Let me keep scrolling in here. Billy Tuesday, Western Kentucky will show us things about our secondary. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they threw for 336 yards against USF. USF is not Ohio State, but USF is also not Houston Christian. So there will be something to be said about what's going on there. We will have to see the best out of Jordan Hancock, Denzel Burke, Davison Benson, everybody. I mean, they're going to have to do a better job. But the good news is that's going to be the game I think we're going to know what Ohio State's pass rush looks like. I did not watch that USF game for Western yet. I'm assuming that it wasn't a case of throwing a bunch of short crossers and a lot of long runs. That's my assumption. So it takes time for your receivers to run down the field. And I think that's going to give Ohio State an opportunity to get to the quarterback. Mika, Nick Bosa got paid too. And boy, did he. He got himself a nice check. Very happy for Nick with the 49ers. That is a nice day of work between he and his big brother Joey. they certainly will be able to fund holiday season for the family for the next, I don't know, 700 years. I think that they'll be fine with all of that. Glasswing Butterfly, I'm nowhere near the ledge, Kev. I'm a believer. We got this one game at a time. The best thing about being 1-0 is a chance to go 2-0. And I think that it's pretty safe to say that they will go 2-0 with Youngstown State on the table. But I know what Glasswing is saying. You got to go week to week and just keep going. So we'll see. Mika agrees. I'm going to keep scrolling here. Sorry about that. I don't know why I'm coughing. Billy Tuesday, some Buckeye fans are glass half empty. Others are smash the glass altogether. I am not convinced that all the things I've seen on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, are from true Ohio State fans. I think some of them are sleeper cells, are fans of other programs purporting to be Ohio State fans to make the fan base look bad. Now, I do know that there are Ohio State fans that can be very critical. And when I question them, I get read the riot act. How dare you question me on how I am to be a fan? I don't have a problem with how most people are being fans. I would never sit there and post on social, oh, this player sucks. I think there are much better ways to do that to get the same message across. I cringe when I see some of that stuff, but I don't have as much of an issue because I know sometimes people are in the heat of the moment and it just happens. But some of the awful, terrible stuff I've read through the years that quote unquote fans have said to these athletes, just terrible. It's just horrible. And I think that NIL has made it even worse because one of the arguments used to be, don't you say that to these kids. They're amateurs. They're amateurs. They're not getting paid. Well, now they're getting paid. So I think a lot of people, right, a few people feel that the gloves are off. Well, he's getting paid. He's making more money than I make in 3 years. To hell with him. He should play in traffic. I mean, just insane stuff. If it brings you so little joy in your life to watch the sport, why are you doing it? I don't understand. And of course, I would never say anything to lose viewers on this show. I would never say anything to lose subscribers to BuckeyeHuddle.com. But if it brings you that much consternation, that much anguish, why put yourself through it, my man? I mean, why do it? I don't understand that. I mean, sure, you could be pins and needles before a big game and nervous and live and die with every rush and every pass and every defensive play. I get it. But then if it just brings utter sheer misery to you, I don't voluntarily put myself into that situation. I mean, I hear about people who are like, I do things so I can feel pain, so I can feel something. Well, okay, I guess, but I don't understand why you do that. And if you choose to do that, why do you have to then expand upon that to everybody else and to the athletes? I don't know. Off my soapbox. People get mad at me. I get emails. I don't like you chastising the fans. That's just really uncouth. Well, this is my show, so I'm going to kind of do what I want to do. But I do your bidding as well. And if people tell me to shut up about it, I'll shut up about it. David Greenshield, Kevin, do you think Day just wants McCord over Brown? I keep hearing good things from camp about Brown. Well, this is a complex question and an easy question all at the same time. I'm going to try and give you more than the easy answer. I'm going to try and give you less than the complex answer because I don't want to go for 40 minutes on this. And I have another show that I'm going to have to do at 3:00. So not on here, a show for up in Mansfield. First and foremost, there are a lot of people who purport a lot of stuff on Devin Brown who have seen 0 practices, none. As a credentialed member of the media, otherwise known as The Beat, since there seems to be a us versus the beat mentality out there that really pisses me off. So you get people who are saying things out there, but we can't figure out where their reality is based in. Where are they saying that from? Beyond that, certainly we heard a lot of positive things from Ryan Day, Corey Dennis, offensive coaches, offensive players. It is a close quarterback battle. I get it. Certainly were not specifics given out. There were not, I mean, we were not told Kyle McCord went 18 of 22, Devin Brown went 17 of 20. I mean, we're not getting that kind of data out there. It's not being put out there. And to the credit and much to my own dismay, they kept a pretty good lid on a lot of stuff from camp this year, more so than other years. So there certainly are going to be the people who are saying stuff about Devin Brown being equal or ahead. And I don't know necessarily where that is coming from. But I would say at the same time, I don't know where the other side of it would be coming from. We're not seeing the things. We're as good as the information that we are given and that we dig up. And there was not a lot to dig up. Kyle McCord is the starter for a reason. And I want to rewind to this summer. This summer, I was one of the few members of The Beat who said, I think Devin Brown wins the job. Let's even forget summer. Let's go back to spring. I was saying that in the spring before Devin Brown hurt his hand prior to the spring game. Then he hurt his hand, missed the spring game, missed a little bit of time. I started to come around and think, well, all things being equal, I think it's going to probably be McCord. And then I just got further and further entrenched upon that. So the sample size that we have right now is one game, 4 quarters, and a game that Ohio State won by 20 points. The biggest mistake that I think that Ohio State could make is saying we're going to play these quarterbacks 50% of each game. Then nobody is necessarily getting all that much better. Because on one side, you have Kyle McCord only getting half the reps in practice leading up, half the reps in the game, and then you're giving half of them to Devin Brown. You're going to have to get to a point at some point where one guy is the starter, period. And it better be by Notre Dame, in my opinion. It better be by Notre Dame. So there is not an issue in my book if one quarterback gets 80% and one quarterback gets 20%. Now, if you work out the numbers, and I see a super chat came in, and I'll jump in on that here in a second. I want to finish David Greenshield's question, though. Devin Brown did not get 20%, but it was a game that Ohio State never really put away. It was never in question, but it was never put away. So what are you going to do at that point? Are you going to just pull McCord to put Brown out there, even though the game hasn't been put away? Are you going to, because that just seems to be counterintuitive to me at that point. Kyle McCord, not particularly sharp in certain aspects of the game. How are we going to get him sharper? By benching him, by putting the other guy in. It doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't make any sense to do. I think you have to play both quarterbacks in the sense of that whoever your starter is, and at this day and time, that starter is Kyle McCord. You have to make sure Kyle McCord is getting the reps that he needs to get better. Because again, the only scoreboard that matters is the scoreboard. And Ohio State needs to win the games. There is no scoreboard for series started, snaps played. None of that stuff matters. It matters to us on shows like this because it gives us something to talk about. It matters to the players individually as they both try to hone in their craft. But at the end of the day, there's not a column in the standings for quarterback snaps. None of that's there. None of that matters. So I think that Kyle McCord is your one right now. Now, could that change at some point? Maybe. There are a lot of things that could have that happen. There certainly are. But with that being said, I don't know why. I don't know why the battle the quarterback controversy has gotten to be so tribal. And I'm not saying that it's tribal for David Greenshield or for anybody here, but on message boards, you're either team Kyle or team Devin. I think everybody should be team Buckeyes. What's best for the Buckeyes? What is going to get Ohio State to 12-0 at the end of the regular season, 13-0 at the end of the Big Ten championship game, 15-0 by the end of the season? Hell, if somebody said to you right now that Ohio State, a genie came out of a bottle and said Ohio State will be 15-0 if it starts Xavier Johnson at quarterback, if you don't take that deal, you're either the dad of McCord or Brown or crazy. I mean, the goal is to get to the end of the race. And I don't want to dissuade conversation from the quarterback battle because we get to write a lot of stories about it. We get to do a lot of shows about it. So I'm not saying, guys, give it up. But I am saying that I think we all need to look at what the goal is. And the goal is not 24. The goal is 23, the 2023 season. The goal is getting the leg lamp trophy. The goal is ending the SEC dominance on that trophy. The goal is getting Ohio State its third national championship of the 2000s. That is the goal. Everything else is just details. So I don't know. Maybe I didn't answer your question, David. I gave you my thoughts. I'm going to mark that. I'm going to the super chat. Jason with another super chat. No, we got that one already. Let me scroll down further. I don't know. My thing jumped here. Here it is. Glass wing. So happy my sink is fixed. The plumber was a young guy. Very nice. Did a great job. Go Bucks. Did you get a number? Just teasing. I'm glad your sink is fixed. I need to get an HVAC guy in here. Our AC unit in the basement is leaking a little bit. I think it's a clogged line. Somebody told me if it is, that's easy enough to do yourself. But I'm an idiot, so I'm not doing that. I'm an idiot. I do not want to do that. Thank you for the super chat. Let me get back to where we were. Let me find where the star is. Boy, did I mark it. All right. I've lost track of where I was. I don't know what the heck happened. We're just going to jump in here. So if I missed a question, I apologize. Frank hates the new clock rule. I do too. The clock rule is dumb for a million reasons. And if they did it just to get more commercials in, boo. Boo on you for doing that. So I don't know. I think that there's going to be an adjustment after this year. And once again, I think it's a case of the few making the call for the many. And I don't necessarily like that decision. I mean, I know things go to the D1 council and everything else, and there's a little more representation there, but I have not really heard any Division I FBS coaches saying, love the new clock rule. I've heard a lot of people say they hate it. I've heard a lot of fans say they hate it. But then again, the NC2A doesn't seem to listen to anybody. So who knows? They may make it worse by next year. Who knows? Let me keep scrolling. Odysseus, that's why I hate the new rule. 8 possessions is insane. Again, remember it was 10, but it's really 8. Ohio State did nothing with its final one, so that gets it down to 9. And then at the end of the half, I mean, there just really wasn't a lot going on there. So, let's just even say it's 9 possessions when they had 15. And, 15 could be cut down. I don't remember how that game went a year ago. But it's dumb. I mean, I understand how they sold it. Fewer plays is better because that's less exposure to an opportunity for catastrophic injuries. I mean, you could trip getting off the team bus. You could be gobbled up by the turf monster in warmups. I mean, it's part of what it is. And I understand that in 24, there will be more games for your top teams because of the expanded playoff. And you can make the discussion of, well, if you're getting 6 fewer plays a game over 15 games, that's 90 that's 90 plays, which is like getting, playing one less game or whatever. I guess. I mean, hell, are we going to get to a point now where there's going to just be NC2A mandated load management? You can't play in back-to-back games, or you can't play 3 games in a row. I mean, I am a big advocate for player safety. I'm a big advocate for all of that type of stuff. CTE is terrible. I think that the days of a lot of kickoff rules are going to get changed here in the nearish future, and things of that nature. Things that are head-on conclusions. I think can. Sorry, maybe I'm showing a little CT at this point. Collisions. Um, I think that you need to have a different way of doing an onside kick, because onside kick is impossible now, especially with a fair catch. I don't like it. I don't like it. So, it is what it is. Chad Stryker saying pollen count is insane right now. Yeah, maybe I need to change my air filter in the leaking furnace. I don't know. But I think part of it too is that I do a lot of shows through the week, and this has been kind of a slow week though. I haven't done as many, and I do lose my voice. I do. My wife gives me a hard time. She's like, "You get into your radio voice. That's not the way you really talk." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." So she's like, "No, you get in there and you try to sound like Richard Blade or something like that, without the British accent." I'm like, I don't know. Vodka. I guess you're assuming that there's vodka in here. We don't have any vodka in this house. This isn't a big vodka household. This is a bourbon and beer household. And it's a little early in the day for any brown liquors, and it's still a little early for a lot of beers. And I can't have too many beers because tomorrow will come early, and with a noon game, I probably will be trying to get on campus by 8:30, which means I'll probably leave my house at about 8, which means I'll probably have to get up about 7:15. Give myself 45 minutes to get up, shower, dress, deal with the dog, get the dog put up, and then head to Ohio Stadium. So I can't rebound the way I used to. It's just not, I'm not able to do that. I mean, during the bowl game, I do my best, but during Youngstown State, I don't need to come out and empty the bucket for Youngstown State. But I can assure you, to watch the straw, this is a clear liquor, and it's just water. It's actually diluted lemonade at this point. Let me see where we are to. What position did I play? I'm going to admit I did not play football in high school. I did not. I was too small. My football days were very short, and I played flag football in the Ohio State Intramural League. I played tight end on offense, and I played linebacker on defense. But generally, I was in mostly for offense, and I was generally the safety option in flag football, the guy that just kind of ran underneath the linebackers and would try to move the chains a little bit as you had to go by certain distances. Chad Stryker says, my frustration with Trey is he won't be able to bounce everyone outside and beat every player to the corner, but he'll get it all together. I think that there is just a thing of where when you are a supremely talented athlete, you believe your supreme talent is going to get you there, and it doesn't always get you there. And that doesn't mean that Trevion Henderson has not been a highly successful college player. He has. I think he's leaving some stuff on the table, and it doesn't really matter until Trey buys into it. Tony Alford can tell him until he's out of breath. He can tell him forever. Until Trey buys into it, that's going to be the case. And again, this is not slandering Trey by any stretch of the imagination. I like Trey personally. I've enjoyed talking to him, with the recorders off, just about, how he, invests in the market and things like that. I mean, I think he's a kid who has a great head on his shoulders and going to be really successful regardless. But I'm not going to be the one to tell him not to dance around so much. He's going to look at me and be like, you must be crazy. You couldn't even run to the buffet table. So again, not my job to coach. I'm gonna go through these things a little quicker. Odysseus, Tegra, Shabola at guard. Okay, but he's been practicing at tackle. I mean, I'm sure he's getting cross-trained. We know he's getting cross-trained. You're just going to throw a true freshman in there, and you're going to sit there and say, nah, we're not going to play Enoch. We're going to have Tegra at guard, and then we're going to kick Donovan Jackson out to tackle. Stranger things have happened. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. I don't think we're going to know anything for 8 quarters. Certainly 4 quarters. Likely 8, maybe even 12. And then the open week. And then they can figure out a lot of stuff. Devin checking in from Tucson. I've been to Tucson once. Southern Swing several years ago. We went down there to go see Lathan Ransom and Bijan Robinson. And we ended up we drove around the Arizona campus area and just couldn't find anywhere we wanted to eat. And we essentially ended up at kind of like a Blaze Pizza type of I don't know if it was a local chain or if it was just a one-off or whatever, and it was fine. I mean, what I remember is driving down from Phoenix to Tucson and being like, wow, there is nothing out here whatsoever. And I'm somebody who grew up in Southern California, but I never spent any time really out in the desert in California. So I was really happy to get to see all of that. I mean, I was driving, so I didn't get to take any pictures or anything like that, but it was cool. It was cool. I would love to get down there again and maybe not be on such a tight timetable because we didn't stay the night in Tucson. We drove down there, got what we needed to, and drove back up to Phoenix because we were in Phoenix only for a couple of days because it was. And for those of you who are not familiar with Southern Swing, you're like, Kevin, what the hell are you talking about? Southern Swing is a recruiting trip that Mark Givler and myself do. And it started as a 1-week trip of just going and covering recruits in Georgia, and then expanded to Georgia and Florida. Then it expanded to 2 weeks. And when warranted, it was Georgia, Florida, and Texas. And then other times it was Georgia and Florida. But we had the 1 year where it was Georgia, Florida, week 1. And then week 2 was split between Texas and Arizona. So it was great because it's really important to get out in front of these recruits and interview them because they don't want to sit there and talk to a bunch of reporters on the phone and on DM on Twitter. So in doing all of that, when you get out in front of them and you make actual formal introductions, they're much more likely to answer your calls. They're much more likely to be forthcoming with you. So it's very important. One of the other things that you're only going to really get at Buckeye Huddle, I know other sites do travel some, but we put such an emphasis in our Southern Swing during the spring of football season, recruiting season, to get out and see these guys. Ohio State needs to recruit Arizona more, so I have an excuse to get out there. I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. I am really starting to lose my voice, so I'm going to start wrapping up. So if I didn't get to any of your questions, I'm going to apologize. Mika saying Blue Smith, one-time Ohio State signee, team member, is at Western Kentucky. How is he still at Western Kentucky? I thought he must be on like the 9-year plan. He must be Dr. Blue by now. But that's crazy. Let me keep scrolling. Frank Corona asking about Houston Christian. Again, I thought it was Houston Baptist. Maybe it's the same program. Maybe it's not. I don't know. You're right, Steve Buckholz, Houston. We have a problem. Let me keep scrolling through here. I'm getting blown up on text messages. That's something else too. I need to answer them, but I'm not going to do it while I'm on the show. So Ivan on board. Hey, how's it going, Ivan? Glad you could join us. Not a name I'm familiar with, so I hope you and everybody be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell so you don't miss a single episode. Give us a thumbs up. That thumbs up is really important. Please give us a thumbs up because that helps us with the algorithm and helps us get distributed to more people, maybe even like Ivan, who may not have been familiar with our content, or maybe Ivan has been familiar and I just don't recognize the name. But I'm going to give you guys 3 seconds to smash all of those buttons for me And if you're watching us on Facebook, be sure to like us as well there too. I'm not exactly sure how that one works. Let me keep scrolling here. I got that super chat. I think we're almost about caught up. I think we're almost caught up. I appreciate everybody on here. I'm sorry that I'm gonna top this one out at 75 minutes. Generally, I only promise an hour. A lot of times I go 2. Sometimes I go 90 minutes. But I'm really losing my voice, and I've got to be able to do radio later here today. So I'm going to call this one a wrap here. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the show. I promise we will start going live more often here. We will go next Friday for sure, getting you ready for Western Kentucky, and then of course we'll figure out what our programming will be the following week, where I will actually decide to punch through some of Michael Campbell's comments, but he is on temporary probation with me for spamming our chat way too much with his slander. But until then, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'll talk to you all very soon and have a great weekend and enjoy the games.